Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Today is explanation of upcoming episode Throne of Seal based on novel. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start. Following the map, Long Houchen headed eastwards. Although Nardwa city was the capital of the Nerix province, it was not very large, and on the streets, the large majority of the passerbys were demons. Of course, ordinary low-rank demons like dual-blade demons weren't permitted to enter the city. When seeing the clothes of Long Houchen's group and their human-shaped appearances, they kept far away from them and fundamentally didn't dare approach. The reason was simple: only high-grade demons would be human-shaped and able to dress the way Long Houchen did. And furthermore, demons' senses would be most usually sharper than humans. Although they couldn't guess Long Houchen's attributes, they faintly sensed that he was dangerous from him, making them subconsciously unwilling to get close to him. Very quickly, Long Houchen found his own target. The place was a simple and crude restaurant, with the signboard outside already crooked. Although demons occupied most areas of Shingmordalu, humans left a very deep influence on them, especially regarding human food, of which demons were very fond. The higher the rank of a demon, the more he would indulge in the pleasure of human beverages and food. Thus, human treatment changed completely compared to the time demons first came to Shingmordalu at the beginning of the Dark Era 6,000 years ago. Even the humans from the Temple Alliance who they were able to capture would be treated well, but of course, this was on the premise that these humans would pledge their allegiance. If a cook was seized, some demon nobles would actually appear personally to try to win him over. Nerix province was close to the border, but was extremely impoverished. Otherwise, last time, the three demon gods wouldn't have dared go against the rules by dispatching an army to ambush the Yu Yi merchant group. In this place, even a small restaurant would be a place only powerful demons would be qualified to enter. For instance, even in front of such a worn-out restaurant, 4 stark black traces were left on the signboard. This signified that only demons of the 4th step, or above, would be qualified to enter, and that was a symbol of the classes. Long Houchen slowly walked into the restaurant. Sweeping his eyes over the small room, he found his target in a glance. A golden birdie demon was seated there, eating and drinking in the best seat of the restaurant. He had 4 dishes and a pitcher of wine in front of him. From this alone, one could see his high status and wealth. Because it was in the afternoon, the interior of the dining room was quite full, mostly with demons at the 4th and 5th step. The only one at the 6th step was this golden birdie demon. And his golden skin made him quite conspicuous. Inside the restaurant, the waiters were 2 humans, busy satisfying the wishes of their guests. Seeing Long Houchen enter, no one called out to him. Long Houchen advanced towards the golden birdie demon. Arriving at the dining table, he lightly knocked on the wooden material. The golden birdie demon was startled. He was eating and drinking well, but disturbed in the middle, he became obviously in quite a bad mood. However, when seeing Long Houchen's face once he raised his head, he appeared shocked. In fact, Long Houchen had changed into a moon demon, making even the clansmen of the Moon Demon clan unable to spot his disguise, to say nothing of this golden birdie demon. Purple eyes, an incomparably handsome face, these were all traits of Moon Demon clan. Seeing the cold glance in Long Houchen's eyes, he hurriedly stood up and tried to ask, "You are?" Long Houchen lifted a hand, showing the Viscount Moon Demon insignia before looking him in the eye. He instructed, "Come out with me." Seeing this insignia, the doubt in the eyes of the golden birdie demon disappeared. Standing up with haste, he followed Long Houchen out of the restaurant. Around them, quite a lot of demons saw this scene, and didn't even dare gasp at the tension of the atmosphere. Although they didn't see Long Houchen's face, seeing a great character like the golden birdie demon taken aback, one might well imagine what kind of existence that person was. Leaving the restaurant, Long Houchen stopped his steps at the door of the restaurant. That golden birdie demon asked very cautiously, "Mr. Viscount, what do you have to tell me?" "Come here." Long Houchen waved him over with a cold voice. That golden birdie demon hurriedly joined Long Houchen's side, still feeling resentful from having to part with his meal. He was praying that Long Houchen's talk would be simple so that he could return to finish his meal soon, otherwise the other guests would surely take advantage of his absence. Seeing the submissive golden birdie demon before his eyes, Long Houchen revealed a cold glance, lifting his right hand to place it on his shoulder. "Are you aware of your crime?" "What?" The golden birdie demon raised his head, looking at Long Houchen with shock. Right at that moment, he became alert. Though, everything was already too late. Long Houchen's right hand stuck a cold flash of sword intent in his neck, and right then, the eyes of the golden birdie demon diluted. Was Long Houchen's right hand so easily touched? It carried the aria of the goddess of light. A surge of sword intent reached out for the brain of the golden birdie demon and crushed it, which caused his sudden death. He didn't even have the time to scream. The fact that a powerhouse of the sixth step died like that in the hands of Long Houchen wasn't so much due to their difference of strength, but the crucial point was his convincing resemblance to a moon demon. His cloak spread out, blocking the line of sight of any passerbys, and with a golden glint, the corpse of the golden birdie demon disappeared into the eternal melody. Not stopping for a bit, Long Houchen headed towards Linshin and Han Yu. Long Houchen's fight didn't attract any attention, as the battle was already over as soon as it began, but things weren't as peaceful for his comrades. Noon was a very good time for Long Houchen's action, because this was the time when demons had their meal. They were not the same as humans, and would only eat 2 meals a day, especially high-ranking demons. Thus, all members of the 64th Demon Hunt Squad aimed fundamentally for the time of their meal. Although Lin Shin's appearance was inferior to Long Houchen's, he still had no problem to disguise himself as an ordinary moon demon, and at an even more vulnerable state than Long Houchen's, because he found it right when the golden birdie demon was about to have his meal on the roadside. From this, it could be seen that although demons were powerful regarding battle strength, in terms of economy and culture, they were clearly inferior to humans, since they were after all strangers to this world. In the Temple Alliance, seeing a powerhouse of the sixth step eating crouched on the street was almost impossible. The golden birdie demon had a very simple meal, a big wok filled with some kind of meat stew or soup. The ground meat put inside and cooked thoroughly before being eaten. This one was accompanied by 4 other great birdie demons, eating along with him. Lin Shin and Han Yu exchanged a glance, and Han Yu nodded to him. A flash of blue light appeared in Lin Shin's eyes, followed by the resonant sound of a phoenix cry, resounding in the street. Why were spiritual stoves powerful? This was because ordinary abilities would generally never be able to match one important aspect, their instant burst. Furthermore, almost all the abilities from spiritual stoves would gain in power as long as the user would gain in strength. These were the basic reasons that made people crave the power of spiritual stoves. When the immense blue fire phoenix abruptly charged at the golden birdie demon, all the demons on the street were stunned. That golden birdie demon was after all a powerhouse at the 6th step, and noticing the danger, he immediately responded, using both of his hands to drag a great birdie demon in front of him. While putting all his force into rushing his spiritual energy, letting a gaudy electric light curl up around him. However, the arrival of the blue fire phoenix was really too sudden, and this was all he had the time to do. A cold smile was drawn on Lin Shin's face, and the blue light filling his eyes became more intense. What followed was the sudden ascending of that blue fire phoenix in the air, before a sudden descent. Actually, he just managed a rapid ascension in the air, before diving down fast. Bang! An immense blue pillar of fire descended from the sky, and the blue fire phoenix instantly returned. In the flames, the 4 great birdie demons were instantly reduced to ashes, and the golden birdie demon roared as his body twitched violently. His massive body seemed to have almost instantly turned into a scorched black mass. Such a terrible high temperature wasn't anything his body could withstand. Originally, even the zombie king of the 8th step had been forced back by the blue fire phoenix. A lofty figure quietly arrived at the back of the struggling golden birdie demon right at that time. Lashing out with a golden red light, he brought the demon's struggle to an end as his head fell down. The figure first carried and then launched the head of the golden birdie demon towards Lin Shin like a blue artillery shell. A blue flame leaped up, instantly engulfing the head of that golden birdie demon, before being extinguished, as the head was absorbed into a magic storing device. Lin Shin then turned around and left, followed by Han Yu after he quickly recovered his sword. In a flash, the 2 of them disappeared into an alley. From the instant Lin Shin launched the attack to the end of the battle, the whole process only lasted a few breaths. The assassination was carried out neatly, and they returned quickly after the end of the battle. Right at that time, Lin Shin's face was extremely pale, and his fists clenched tightly. His whole body actually trembled slightly. However, he clenched his teeth and endured bitterly. Under Han Yu's protection, he headed back to the caravan. After the constant training he went through in the time of seclusion, his ability to endure the backlash of the spiritual stove actually increased a lot. The backlash of the spiritual stove of Blue Fire Phoenix was different from the spiritual stove of Samsara, which was almost impossible to resist. But conversely, resisting the backlash of the spiritual stove of Blue Fire Phoenix was a type of training for Lin Xin, and after attempting continuously, and learning through experience, his ability to bear the effects of the spiritual stove improved with time. Only this way would the spiritual stove get closer to its future evolution. Right when Lin Xin finished his battle, Sima Xian's side also completed their part. But right at this time, those 6 great birdie demons launched themselves at Sima Xian, pointing their spears at him. Go to hell. Sima Xian roared loudly, and an immense white pillar of light abruptly burst out against his opponents, enveloping the weapons of those 6 great birdie demons in its range. A terrible scene emerged. The 6 great birdie demons were immediately set aflame with a white fire, screaming as they fell to the ground. Their spears indeed hit Sima Xian's body, but only managed to pierce his cloak. This was Holy Spirit, a technique of offensive armor used by priests of the 6th step. Consuming an enormous amount of spiritual energy, it would come with extra powerful purifying effects. Seeking for efficient cleaning, Sima Xian immediately launched this powerful ability. At the same time he killed the 6 great birdie demons. The golden birdie demon was already hit with the energetic ball of light. Bang! Without suspense, his spear broke into pieces, and more terrifyingly, the golden birdie demon flew along with the trajectory of the energetic ball of light, directly causing the explosion of the roof. The golden birdie demon was unexpectedly not sent flying by the attack, but was stuck to the energetic ball of light. It could be clearly seen that some purple substance was entangled with the energetic ball of light. Immediately, with the loud _bang bang bang triple sound, 3 purple balls of light exploded in succession against the golden birdie demon. And then, nothing was left of him. A gold-colored magical crystal surrounded by electricity was stuck close to the energetic ball of light, and with a pull on the chain, Sima Xian retrieved it. The energetic ball of light returned to his hand as he turned around and left, while not even ashes were left of that golden birdie demon. In regard of raw power, in the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad, as long as Long Houchen wouldn't use storing power and Caia wouldn't use the spiritual stove of Samsara, no one could surpass Sima Xian. Even Lin Xin's Blue Phoenix spiritual stove was still below the energetic ball of light regarding instant power. During this operation, the one who took the longest time was Wang Yuanyuan. Wang Yuanyuan and Sima Xian had similar battle styles. After she found her target, she attacked with the Divine Soul Shield. However, the golden birdie demon she faced was different from the others. The wings on his back emitted a dark golden luster. After seeing this golden birdie demon, Wang Yuanyuan memorized his position, turned around and concealed herself. Equipped the Divine Soul Shield, before activating the spiritual stove of Spatial Gate. With a flash of silver light, she appeared right behind that golden birdie demon, and violently swept the Divine Soul Shield horizontally, which was embedded with 4 spatial crystals. In Wang Yuanyuan's opinion, this sudden attack should have cut this golden birdie demon in 2. However, the response of this special golden birdie demon was actually incomparably quick. The instant Wang Yuanyuan appeared at his back, launching her attack, the wings on the back of this golden birdie demon were abruptly flapped backwards, colliding with the Divine Soul Shield. Not trying to force her way, she made use of the powerful offensive strength of the Divine Soul Shield to leap back. That golden birdie demon let out a scream, seeing the 2 wings on his back being completely broken. In the end, the Divine Soul Shield still had some effect on him, and a mouthful of bluish-purple blood started to leak from his mouth. Flying forward, he took out a lightning spear glowing in a faint dark golden color. Wang Yuanyuan was startled, so it actually didn't die from this, still, she obviously wouldn't stop at such a time. Abruptly spreading out her own spiritual wings, she dashed towards the golden birdie demon, again striking with the Divine Soul Shield. That golden birdie demon was at a loss, because Wang Yuanyuan's attack was too sudden. Using the instant teleportation of the Spatial Gate spiritual stove, she didn't give him any room for an effective counterattack. Being a birdie demon, having both his wings broken was a large blow to him, because it stripped him from the ability to fly. Right at that time, intense light and dark shadows unfolded, and the incomplete dark golden birdie demon was powerless in front of it. Getting sunk into darkness instantly, it was struck with power. With a brilliant glint, the corpse disappeared, and a sweet figure appeared near Wang Yuanyuan. She pulled her hand, and the 2 of them rapidly disappeared in the alley. An ear-piercing strident sound rapidly echoed through Nardwa City, and the whole city was flared up. A large battalion of the demon army started to search everywhere in the city. Even with the Kuli clan's status as one of the leaders of the Nerix province, 4 golden birdie demons actually ended up assassinated, and another golden birdie demon went missing. It only took an instant for Nadwa city to react. The demon god in charge of the city immediately gave the order to close the gates of the city and search for human spies. The instant the order was transmitted to close the city's gates, the Yi merchant group happened to be on the verge of leaving the city. Given how the Yi merchant group ended up being ambushed during their last trip through the Nerix province, which had roused the fury of the demon god emperor, who had yet to be completely appeased, the Yi merchant group was still allowed to leave. They passed the city gates even after the demon god ordered them closed, after being carefully inspected. It would have been strange if they had found anything. Right after reuniting, 6 of them immediately hid in the Tower of Eternity, while Long Houchen disguised as a manservant and completely suppressed his presence and aura. His youth became his greatest disguise. After the merchant group smoothly left the city, he summoned his comrades back. Once they reunited, everyone was on cloud 9, with only Lin Shen looking in a somewhat bad shape due to the backlash of his spiritual stove. The first mission is complete. We killed 5 golden birdie demons and recovered their magical crystals, which will grant us a reward of 30,000 contribution points. If the magical crystals aren't delivered, the reward will only consist of 10,000 contribution points. Long Houchen was also in a very good mood. While trying out their skills, they completed their first commander grade mission as a demon hunt squad. And this was done only 2 days after leaving the Temple Alliance. Of course, the mission of killing 5 golden birdie demons could be considered a relatively simple one among the stack they took. The Yi merchant group's journey was still headed to the southeast, directly towards the central province. The reason was that this was the most bustling place, where goods could be sold at the best prices. The 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad followed the merchant group deep into the demon territory, and with the map and information provided, combined with the assistance of the Yi merchant group, they completed 5 successive missions. Of course, they wouldn't act every time the Yi merchant group would stop, since this behavior would too easily turn the Yi merchant group into suspects. They would generally stop at one city with the Yi merchant group, and regroup with them after the completion of their mission in the city. This time was filled with more fears than dangers, and they didn't meet any true difficulties. A third of their 16 missions were already completed. When the Yi merchant group entered the central province, also came the time they would have to part with them. This wasn't because they didn't have any targets in the central province, but because Long Houchen made the decision to go by order of difficulty, completing the simpler missions first before heading for the central province. Long Houchen's group was on the verge of starting their 7th mission, entailing the killing 100 Jack demons. Jack demons were rather low-rank powerhouses, but often acted as a group. In their clan, the most powerful ones were at the 8th step, and their ranked officers mostly were at the 6th step. Completing this mission wouldn't be easy, at least it would be harder than the missions they completed so far on this trip. The Jack demons as a whole only numbered 5 or 6,000. To stay unnoticed from the chief of the Jack clans, and kill 100 Jack demons without their intervention wouldn't be easy. The difficulty increased by a level, as they wouldn't have the help from the Yi merchant group this time, and had to rely on their own for everything. According to the map, it would take them less than half a day to reach and enter the Jack province. The area wasn't much different from the other provinces under demon control. The land was very poor and infertile, and farmland was very rare. Long Houchen tightened his large cloak and told Kia, "We will be continuing to the south for 2 or 3 days before making it into the capital, Major Jacques city, of the Jacques province. It seemed that all the Jacques clansmen will be concentrated in the city. This is a good thing for our operation, but will make it somewhat more complicated to get away. After the mission is complete, we will turn east, heading for the next mission." Kia asked, "Should we also kill the chiefs of the Jacques clan?" That would be at least a king grade mission. When completing a mission of superior grade, we would receive even better rewards. Long Houchen shook his head. "We can't. That would be too dangerous. We currently have no certainty to win against a powerhouse at the 8th step. And starting from the 8th step, every rank would produce a very large gap. A powerhouse standing at the peak of the 8th step will at least reach 100,000 units of spiritual energy, and is far from what we can take on. We should go for the dependable way and complete the mission as fast as possible before withdrawing from the Jacques province." The others didn't have any complaints about Long Houchen going for the safe way. Taking the least amount of risk possible unless necessary, even if their strength had taken a qualitative leap, he remained very prudent as a captain. While they were speaking, rumbling sounds rang out in front of them. Because of the sand in the air, they couldn't clearly see what kinds of demons were in front of them, but from the sound, they were only at a few kilometers away, and also quite numerous. Hide. Long Houchen lifted his hand, flashing to a side while looking for a dune to hide behind. Without need for any words, Kia disappeared calmly, entering the invisible state to scout in the direction of the sound. Scouting was originally the first duty of an assassin. Captain, want to scare them witless? Sima Xian showed a smile, the energetic ball of light already in his hand. On this trip to the demon territory, the most dazzling of all was him. With the energetic ball of light, he killed quite a few demon powerhouses, including even a demon of the 7th step. Although that demon of the 7th step was pinned down by the others at that time, Sima Xian took only one blow to ensure the kill, proving again the terrifying level of power his energetic ball of light currently possessed. Long Houchen waved his hand, saying, "Let's see from which clans these demons are and how many they are." No need to rush in blindly. Because the sandstorm was too strong, their faces were covered with veils. With the further addition of the sand-colored cloaks on them, after lying low, even from the sky they wouldn't be found easily. A short time later, Kia returned to them, the spiritual wings on her vanishing. She said in a low voice to Long Houchen, "That's the Jacques clan. They are chasing after a demon hunt squad." "What? People from our side?" Long Houchen was startled. Kia nodded. The Jacques clan dispatched an army of at least 1,000 demons. They are led by 2 powerhouses from the Jacques clan, and the Jacques officers number at least 30 or 40. The demon hunt squad they are chasing should be at the king grade, fighting back while trying to retreat. But from their looks, things aren't going well for them. That's because none of them uses their spiritual wings. There's a kind of purple liquid on them, and if this continues, I'm afraid things will not end well for them. I vaguely saw that a kind of purplish-black figure was hovering in the sky, following the Jacques clan from above. That purplish-black substance very possibly came from it, and should carry the effect of preventing the use of spiritual wings. The gazes of their comrades all fell on Long Houchen, and their current predicament was, to save or not to save. Without a doubt, the Jacques clan army was extremely powerful. With 2 Jacques chiefs leading them, the other side shouldn't have any opportunity to fight back. But the enemies were chasing for the kill of a king-grade demon hunt squad. Long Houchen turned around, looking at his own comrades. "By saving them, we will very possibly face a very big danger, but if we don't intervene, our fellow soldiers will very possibly die here. What do you think?" "Boss, let's do it." Sima Xian was the first to reply, expressing a very strong fighting intent. Everyone else nodded successively to Long Houchen. Long Houchen narrowed his eyes and said, "Kia, we'll leave that one in the air to you. If I'm not guessing wrong, that should be a demon holder, an aerial demon powerhouse of the 6th step specialized in support. This demon holder isn't strong by itself, but extremely annoying, because it can spread its mucus over a large area. When infected, purging it is very hard, and it will cause the loss of the ability to release spiritual wings while greatly decreasing the overall speed. They are important supportive forces of the demons. You'll be getting rid of it before reuniting with us, while ensuring a path for retreat. After killing the demon holder, we'll act from our side. Attacking the enemy from the flanks will not be meeting them head-on. Giving our fellow soldiers the opportunity to retreat will suffice. After the matter is over, we'll be escaped by flying away. Within the Jacques clan, only powerhouses of the 6th step or above are capable of flight. The only ones able to give us trouble would be those 2 Jacques leaders at the 8th step. Everyone, listen to my instructions. If need be, I'll separate from you, and you'll follow how you are. Then I can return to your side later through teleporting. As long as we are given the time to launch the teleportation through the eternal melody, we'll stay absolutely safe. No one is to zealously continue fighting, understood?" Yinger, Yule, then, he gave specific instructions to Chen Yinger. He had no choice but to make his plans clear, otherwise, given the feelings of his comrades and himself, it was unsure whether they'd let him go by himself when he wanted to separate from them. Kia nodded and her black spiritual wings appeared once again. Her figure pierced through the skies in a flash as her body was already in the state of invisibility. After reaching the 6th step of cultivation, Kia could make the best use of the necklace of invisibility. When she combined its effect with her technique of invisibility, she could remain invisible even at great flight speed. In this state, she would absolutely have no fear when scouting as long as the enemies were inferior to her in cultivation. Long Houchen had absolute confidence in Kia, and the demon holder was only a demon at the 6th step. Without any additional assistance, it was quite weak. Right when Long Houchen finished coordinating their deployment, the distant rumbles were growing more and more distinct, and the air filled with yellow dust. Long Houchen's group could only roughly see some figures flying forward. Soon, their equipped spears came into sight one after another. In the meantime, ear-piercing splitting sounds filled the air. The Jacques demons looked similar to centaurs. Their upper bodies resembled those of humans, but their chests and backs were covered with black scales. Their faces, however, were only a bit longer than those of humans, and looked very fierce. The lower part of their bodies was very similar to horses, including 4 stamping hooves. They were experts in using spears, and capable of throwing a spear over a long distance. The situation of those humans escaping from them looked horrible. A knight acted as their rear guard together with his powerful mount, an earth dragon exceeding 7 meters in size. One bolt of golden light, after another, lit up his body, resisting the great majority of the attacks from their pursuers. The others were riding different kinds of magical beasts while advancing. Those were mounts summoned by their summoner. And like this, they desperately kept escaping. Although the ordinary Jacques demons were unable of flight, every one of them carried at least 4 spears, constantly tossing them at the fleeing enemy, before picking them up again. The demons with wings on their backs were Jacques officers. The ones above them were 2 extremely tall Jacques demons reaching a height over 3 meters, and although they only had 1 spear in hand, it was exceedingly immense, and would create a thundering sound at every blow. The earth dragon of that human knight was already heavily wounded, but he remained really valiant. With the healing from the priest, the backing from the mage and the harassment of the enemy from the flanks, he managed to forcibly block the assault led by those 2 Jacques chiefs at the 8th step. At closer look, one could tell that the knight was clad in an extraordinary mithril armor, and every time the enemy's attack would land, he was unharmed. That was a mithril foundation armor, making him a mithril foundation armored knight. Demon hunt squads were the greatest elites among humans, and the king grade demon hunt squads were the cream of the crop. The step from the commander grade to the king grade represented a fundamental leap. Additionally to the need to accumulate 1 million contribution points to ascend, rising to this grade was very hard. Although this mithril foundation armored knight didn't yet have the strength of the 8th step, he still reached at least the peak of the 7th step. Using the combination of a heavy sword and a heavy shield in his hands, his strength was quite something. The front line from the Jacques demons was still chasing after the king grade demon hunt squad, as they were close to reaching the dune concealing Long Houchen's group. Long Houchen gestured towards Chen Yinga. Chen Yinga nodded her head and immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, starting the chant of an incantation. An illusory-looking soft white radiance revolved around her. It spiraled outwards, and in that soft light, Chen Yinga looked completely immersed into a fantastic vortex. The reason why she didn't take the initiative to use her magic before was out of fear that those 2 Jacques chiefs of the 8th step would discover it, but now, no one could stop her anymore. Meanwhile, with a glint of silver light, Hao Yue's massive body appeared at their side, and Han Yu also summoned his own demonic eye. Long Houchen raised his head and looked into the sky. With a mournful shriek, a plump figure appeared, belonging to a huge monster with 6 wings, reaching at least a size of 5 meters. If not for these 6 wings, it would perhaps be unable to fly at all, and that massive body would directly fall to the ground upon trying. McDull, go. Long Houchen gave a low shout. The little pig McDull was extremely fast, swallowing a magical crystal before jumping up. His small eyes glinted and locked on that demon holder lying dead on the ground. Immediately afterwards, with a strong purple-black radiance, McDull leapt to the sky, and rapidly changed appearance, taking the shape of a demon holder. Go. Long Houchen shouted loudly before the 4 wings on his back appeared. Flapping them once, he charged forward like a bullet. Meanwhile, the others were all on Hao Yue's broad back, with only Chen Yinga left behind, still chanting. He rapidly approached the army of Jacques demons from their left side. The response of the Jacques army didn't take long, and upon discovering them, several dozens Jacques demons swerved to meet the new enemy. Turning to their lateral side, they threw their spears towards Long Houchen. With a sudden burst of dazzling golden light, Long Houchen accelerated like a golden meteor, and in the meanwhile, wide expanses of golden light burst out from his back, aiming at the Jacques demons. Without using the glorious holy shield, the current Long Houchen carried the rippling light in his left, and the aria of the goddess of light in his right hand, which pierced the enemies like a golden god of death. Every thrown spear was reduced to dust in front of its domineering light essence. Yating already appeared behind Long Houchen, and launched her light magic, just like before. The Jacques demons deserved being called a powerful demon type at close range. Still, no matter whether it was at close range, or at a distance, they were tough opponents. 10 Jack demons immediately met Long Houchen. Long Houchen was aiming to get this resolved quickly, and even hoped to complete their mission right here. Therefore, he naturally didn't have any reservations. He swung the two heavy swords, launching ripples of light with light thorn. Right at this moment, one could see that the two swords were different, yet had the common point of possessing a very intense sword intent. However, the light thorn from the rippling lights in his left hand only killed 3 Jock demons, while the aria of the goddess of light in his right hand emitted a 10 meters long terrifying blade of light, sweeping the enemies like the wind. At least a dozen Jack demons were cut off by this mere blow. Let alone the enemies, even Long Houchen himself didn't expect the aria of the goddess of light to have such a great burst power. During their latest missions, they didn't get caught into any crowded battles like this, thus Long Houchen only got to learn now that the divine sword actually reached such a terrifying level of power. In normal times, the aria of the goddess of light could release a blade of light of 2 meters length, but this was without the help of the pure light element inserted by Long Houchen. After this divine sword got sealed, many people had tried to undo its seal without success. Even a powerhouse of the 9th step had failed and left in low spirits, but why was that? This was because the requirement for the release of the seal was not a massive amount of light elemental spiritual energy, but an incomparably pure spiritual energy of the light element. With the backing from the overflowing sword intent, Long Houchen was like a tiger among a flock of sheep. Once again flapping the wings on his back, he made his way into the enemy lines and immediately burst out like a tyrannical golden spiral in the midst of the Jack demons. Retribution Knight skill of the 7th step, Storm of Blades. Although Long Houchen wasn't yet at the 7th step of cultivation, his capacity as a God's chosen one still permitted him to use reasonably powerful skills of the 7th step, because his spiritual energy was backed by Yating with her full strength. Right now, if one paid careful attention, they would see that at the back of the rapidly whirling Long Houchen, Yating was keeping herself close to him, absorbing great amounts of the spiritual energy in the air before pouring it inside Long Houchen's body. Storm of Swords was a powerful ability, which affected a large area. It could be called an upgraded version of the warrior's tornado strike. With a stronger spiritual energy and a stronger weapon, it would gain in power as well. When using this ability, Long Houchen turned everything in an area of 30 meters into an ocean of gold, instantly reducing 24 Jack demons to broken pieces, entangled in the golden light. With a resonant bellow, Hao Yue's massive figure was dashing forward. Sweeping his massive tail, he brazenly sent several Jack demons flying to the sky. Then, his 4th head acted in the same way as the great magic cannon from a fort, continuously launching one spell after another, all bursting in succession. Han Yu, Sima Xian, and Wang Yuan jumped from Hao Yue's back. Sima Xian was in the front, blocking the enemies in front of Hao Yue to let him launch a smooth magic assault. Han Yu and Wang Yuan were on his left and right side. Lin Xin didn't use any powerful offensive spell, and acted as a defender, creating one fire shield after another with a lightning speed, helping everyone to resist the attacks from the enemies. Their 1 year of seclusion brought a lot of changes to the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad. With the great strengthening of their external spiritual energy, and the steady advance of their internal spiritual energy, as well as their steady attitude and the spiritual stoves acquired by everyone, they were now comparable to a new Demon Hunt Squad of the King Grade. Little Flame belched out an exploding fireball of 1 meter diameter. He aimed at the distance with a loud bang, and bathed 1 more dozen Jack demons in an ocean of fire. Without pause, Little Green kept puffing out one wind edge after another. But the difference from Little Fire was that although Little Green's launched spells weren't really that powerful, they had the size of eyes, and every wind edge would find a Jack demon and aim at their vitals. Little Light was releasing golden light, connecting himself with Long Houchen to constantly pour his light element energy into Long Houchen's body through Brilliant World. Little Blue raised his head with some pride, the horn on his head glinting in faint white light, as he spouted large numbers of ice cones at the surroundings. This was not only effective in killing and wounding the enemies, but also reduced their speed. It could be said that at his current state, Hao Yue could be considered the same as 4 mags, all of them at the 6th step. Under these circumstances, while awaiting the dozen Jack demons of officer rank, the casualties among the ordinary Jack demons already surpassed 200 and were increasing fast. After rushing in to kill the enemy, Long Houchen was now back at the side of his comrades. Seeing the dozen of Jack officers charge at them, he let out a cold snort and met them head-on at large strides. A black figure appeared at his side right then. Turning his head, Long Houchen saw Caia and lightly nodded to her. The two of them went almost hand in hand, to kill that dozen Jack officers. Purplish-black liquid suddenly scattered in the air, but this time, it was not directed against the members of the demon hunt squads. It accurately landed on those two Jack chiefs of the 8th step, as well as the Jack officers, whose numbers exceeded 20. Their speed declined rapidly, and their wings lost their functionality. The original advantage of speed of those powerful Jack demons disappeared in a flash. Who? Filled with disbelief, the Jack chiefs raised their heads to look at the sky, seeing that an immense purplish-black figure was preparing a second batch of mucus spray. This was naturally the little pig McDull in transformed shape, who gained the ability of the demon holder through his adaptability, and launched this attack from the air. The Jack chief on the left side pointed his hand to the sky, and a pitch-black radiance soared upwards, aiming directly at the little pig McDull. But an instant later, disturbing effects were produced in the sky, and with an ear-piercing hissing sound, the sky became all dark. After such a long time of cultivation, he could finally launch the powerful ability Azura Strike with only one hand. While launching this blow, a severe white glow spread out from the midst of his body, enveloping more than a dozen Jack officers in it. However, this ability wasn't launched by Long Houchen, but came from Yating, who had been chanting for a really long time. Light spell of the 7th step, Holy Intimidation. For the light fairy Yating, launching a spell one rank above was nothing much, only required a little more time. If this spell was directed at ordinary enemies, it would only temporarily put them in a state of shock while causing light elemental damage, preventing them from moving for 2 seconds and no more. However, when Holy Intimidation was aimed at enemies of the darkness element, its might would increase severalfold, especially against enemies of inferior strength, producing extreme effects. One could clearly see that all the Jack officers were ignited with a white fire, and their group that was about to encircle Long Houchen and Kia shrieked. Their bodies twitched violently, as they sunk in a dizzy state due to the extreme effects of intimidation. If one looked down from a certain height, he would see that right after the eruption of the white glint, the golden and a black figure passed through the crowd like shadows, and next, one corpse after another fell to the ground. All the 30 Jack officers of the 6th step were wiped out. The golden and the black figure met, and Long Houchen and Caia stared at each other, perfectly mirroring the shock on their counterpart's face. Although they had complete confidence in their ability of getting rid of those Jack officers, they didn't actually expect it to go that smoothly. Even without the magic assistance from Yating, they wouldn't have faced much difficulty. But with her spell, killing these Jack officers became as simple as to kill ordinary Jack demons. For any army who lost a quarter of their troops while the enemy didn't suffer any losses, preserving the will to fight wasn't easy. Against the tyrannical offensive from the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad, the army of Jack demons was finally routed and started escaping in all directions. At this time, the two Jack chiefs of the 8th step were in a state of shock, while getting caught in an inescapable predicament. Of course, Long Houchen's group wouldn't go chase after these ordinary Jack demons. From the beginning, they only went after the powerhouses from the Jack clan to rescue their fellow mates. However, against their expectations, they defeated the army of Jack demons, to the point that those escapees didn't even pay heed to their chiefs, solely being preoccupied with their escape. Situations like this would actually almost never occur for soldiers of the Temple Alliance. On the other side, the King Grade Demon Hunt Squad stopped their escape, and faced the attacks from these powerful Jack demons. In this team, the most powerful ones were the Mithril Foundation, Armored Knight and the Summoner. Thanks to the Summoner, who spent great expenses of spiritual energy to bring forth all those summons, they withstood the attacks from these Jack demon powerhouses, and made a pincer attack in cohesion with Long Houchen's group. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.